Hello friends, so welcome to this lecture on Azure Service Endpoints. So in this lecture we'll discuss two things. One is need for service endpoints, that why actually we need this, and then is the Azure Network Service Endpoints. Just to bring you on the same page, this is the another control we can use in the Azure network to have a layer in, or you can say defense in depth approach. So what exactly is the need for service endpoint? See, we need to understand one thing that okay, there are many Azure services like your SQL or let's say your storage account. They have the internet facing IP address or the public IP address assigned to it. And there is a reason that okay, there is exposure to these services over the internet. So let's say if this is your virtual machine within a subnet, within a VNet, and you have this SQL server, and if you are not using the service endpoint, in that case, the traffic which flows from your virtual machine to your storage account or your SQL server, that is routed via the internet. So in that case, there are a number of security concerns by certain organizations, especially the BFSI sector, wherein banking, finance, or the insurance, they really don't prefer the use of Azure services because there is a exposure to the internet for various services. So there is a security concern over here, and that is the reason that okay, there was a throwback of using the Azure SQL or storage account because of having the exposure to the internet or to the public network. So that is the reason that okay, some of the organizations they were still reluctant to use these services. So in order to really solve that pain and to solve the security issue, Microsoft introduced the service endpoints concept. So we'll dig in a moment that okay, what exactly is the service endpoint? So service endpoint basically extends your virtual network private address space and the identity of your VNet to the various Azure services over a direct connection. See, one thing we need to understand that okay, whenever we use the service endpoint, and that is the main reason, traffic from your virtual network, you can see the virtual network from your VNet to the Azure service always remains on the Microsoft backbone. So we'll try to understand with the help of example. So you can see this particular virtual network we have, and then within the virtual network we have this subnet wherein we have this virtual machine configured. So and the service endpoint, whenever we create, we attach that particular subnet. We attach the service endpoint with the subnet which is there configured in the VNet. So herein we have configured a service endpoint which is attached to this particular subnet where we have configured one virtual machine. Now, when by applying this service endpoint, when this service endpoint, we can attach it with the, for you accessing the SQL or for accessing the your storage account. And when this will happen, you can see the source IP address will be the virtual machine only, and it will pass the traffic using the Microsoft backbone network. Means the traffic is not routed via the internet and there is no exposure over the internet or to the public network. So that is why we can use the service endpoint to uh, you know to make sure that okay, there is no exposure to the internet when the traffic flows. And you can also do the connectivity via the express route using the NAT onto the on-premise network as well. And what is endpoint? Like endpoint allows you to secure your critical Azure resources only to your virtual network only. And traffic from your VNet to Azure service always remain on the Microsoft Azure backbone. And traffic is not routed via the public internet. And once you have enabled the service endpoint, the source IP address of the virtual machine which is there in the subnet switch from using the public IP address to using the private IP address if you can see in the diagram, and when communicating with the service from that particular subnet. So by using the service endpoint, we can make we can control of the exposure of data over the public network. There are a number of there are a number of services, Azure services within the different region which you can use like Azure Storage, SQL, Data Warehouse, or Cosmos DB, Key Vault, Azure Event Hub, and there are still some services which are in preview. So make sure that okay, before using that or planning that, you check the Microsoft Azure documentation. And what are the benefits of using network service endpoint? The first thing we have already discussed, the traffic from the VNet to your Azure sources will always be remain on the backbone network of Microsoft. And another one is securing your critical Azure resources only to your virtual network. And the third one is since the service endpoints are configured on a subnet, like we have already discussed in a VNet, therefore endpoint work with any type of compute instance running within that particular subnet. And you have the option to configure multiple service endpoints for various supported Azure services like Azure Storage, Database, Key Vault, Event Hub, even with Azure App Service, Cosmos DB. So these are the various benefits we have in case of network service endpoints. So this is it, friends. In this lecture, we discussed that okay, what exactly is the need for service endpoint or what is the pain point. Then we discussed actually about the Azure network service endpoint and then the benefits of network service endpoints. So thank you, friends. Thank you for watching this lecture. Meet you in the next lecture. Thank you.